Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi, Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan Yogya Ki Jai, Priyamadanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Transcendental Krishna Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodhana Handana Praja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtotar Shata Shri Srimad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtotar Shata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 8, text. All right. Text 9. 30 through 46. 38. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, there's no purport though for 38. Oh wait, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong chapter. Okay. Okay, I see. All right. Mitaha Kalir Abut Tesham Tatarte Tarsha Chetasam Aham Purvam Aham Purvam Na Tvam Na Tvam Iti Prabho Metakalir Abutesham Tadarte Tarsha Chetasam Aham Purvam Natvam Iti Prabho Metakalir Abutesham Tadarte Tarsha Chetasam Aham Purvam Natvam Iti Prabho Mitakalir Abutesham Tadarte Tarsha Chetasam Aham Purvam Natvam Iti Prabho Mitakalir Abutesham Tadarte Chetasam Aham Purvam Natvam Iti Prabho Abutesham Tarsha Chetasam Aham Purvam Abutesham Chetasam Aham Purvam Te Prabho Tesham Aham Purvam Tvam Natvam Iti Prabho Mitaha among themselves Kalihi disagreement and quarrel Abut there was Tesham of all of them Tadarte for the sake of nectar Tarsha Chetasam bewildered in heart and soul by the illusory energy of Vishnu. Aham, I. Purvam, first. Aham, I. Purvam, first. Na, not. Tvam, you. Na, not. Tvam, you. Iti, thus. Prabho, O King. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O King, A quarrel then arose among the demons over who would get the nectar first. Each of them said, "You cannot drink it first. I must drink it first. Me first, not you." Purport: This is the symptom of demons. The first concern of a non-devotee is how to enjoy his personal sense gratification at once, whereas the devotee's first concern is to satisfy the Lord. This is the distinction between the non-devotee and the devotee. In this material world, since most people are non-devotees, they regularly compete, fight, disagree, and war amongst themselves, for everyone wants to enjoy and satisfy his own senses. Therefore, unless such demons become Krishna conscious and are trained to satisfy the senses of the Lord, there can be no question of peace in human society or any society, even that of the demigods. The demigods and devotees, however, always surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus the Lord is always anxious to satisfy their ambitions. While the demons fight to satisfy their own senses, devotees engage in devotional service to satisfy the senses of the Lord. The members of the Krishna consciousness movement must be alert in regard to this point, and then their preaching of the Krishna consciousness movement will be successful. Om Agyana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadah Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shriyutav Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Kruna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Dhanavirga Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Disciparine. What were the total verses you said? Like 36 to 40 something? 30 through 46. That's so many verses. So we hear the demons and the demigods quarreling over who will have the nectar. Let's see. I can read a little bit from these verses here. Okay. I can read a little bit and summarize a little bit. So this is back to text 30. Next, Varuni, the lotus-eyed goddess, who controls drunkards with the permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. What was it? With the permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the demons, headed by Bali Maharaj, took possession of this young girl. O king, thereafter, while the sons of Kashyapa, both demons and demigods, were engaged in churning the ocean of milk, a very wonderful male person appeared. He was strongly built, and there's more description of him. He was dressed in yellow garments. His body had all good features. He carried a jug with nectar. This person was Dhanvantari, a plenary portion of Lord Vishnu. He was very conversant with the science of medicine, and as one of the demigods, he was permitted to take a share in sacrifices. Upon seeing Dhanvantari carrying the jug of nectar, the demons, desiring the jug and its contents, immediately snatched it away by force. When the jug of nectar was carried off by the demons, the demigods were morose. Thus they sought shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always desires to fulfill the ambitions of his devotees, saw that the demigods were morose, he said to them, "Do not be aggrieved. By my own energy I shall bewilder the demons by creating a quarrel among them. In this way I shall fulfill your desire to have the nectar." And then we hear the verse that we were reading, where the demons and demigods, where the demons are quarreling to get the nectar first. So they can't even work together themselves. They're quarreling with each other. Aham purvam, me first, me first. Natwam iti prabho, not you. Definitely not you. You're not getting it first. So this is the nature of the demons, is that they want to gratify their senses at all cost. And so we see that like extreme desire for sense gratification can be manifested in so many different forms, even in the name of altruism or welfare work or nice manners or being a good person or whatever, even things that might seem like good qualities can be used as another facade for facilitating my own personal sense gratification. So this is the demoniac nature, that whatever needs to be done, it can get done in order to facilitate my senses of this temporary body being satisfied. But ultimately, that's a useless waste of time just to try to satisfy the senses of this body, because this body is temporary. So whatever one gets for this body, it's certainly going to be lost in a short amount of time. And if one endeavors for that which is eternal, then they're getting a much bigger benefit. So Chanakya Pandit explains that if someone gives up the pursuit of that which is eternal, so if one gives up the service to Radha Kalachandji to engage in trying to get something temporary, what's the use? Because the temporary thing, it'll certainly disappear. And if they give up that which is eternal, the service of Krishna, then that's also disappeared. They're also not going to get that. So it's a lose-lose situation. But if one is always engaged in serving Krishna, then it's a win-win situation, because he promises in the Bhagavad Gita to carry what the devotee lacks and preserve what they have. And whatever service one renders to Krishna, it's with them permanently. That's never going to go away. So if you distribute Srila Prabhupada's books to somebody, and they take just one book and read even one line of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that's perfect. Even if in their whole life they only read one line of the Bhagavatam, even if they didn't take the book, if they just touched the book, read one line, then that means in their next lifetime they'll read some more of the Srimad Bhagavatam, even if that was all the service that they did. Because whatever service one does to Krishna, it's going to stay with them. That's to their eternal credit. So they'll pick up where they left off. So it makes sense to engage in Krishna's service, but for the demons who are less intelligent, they want to engage just in the service of this temporary body. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that in the material world, since most people are non-devotees, they regularly compete, fight, disagree, and war amongst themselves. So because of this desire to satisfy one's own senses, then there's so many problems. Wars, disagreements, quarrels, just for the sake of satisfying the body. And this demoniac nature is further described in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, text 11 through 12. Chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam upashitaha kamopaboga parama itavad iti nishchitaha asha pasha shatir badha kamakroda parayanaha ihante kamabogartam anyayenarta sanchayan. They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires, and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. And again, it's a useless effort. Chanakya Pandit explains that whatever money one gains illegally, it can be enjoyed up until the 10th year. And then once 10 years passes, the 11th year, all of the illegally gained money vanishes and all of your legitimate money. So this the demoniac nature is always a lose-lose situation. And we'll see in this churning of the milk ocean that even in this competition with the demigods, they're losing from the beginning to the end. At the beginning, when they're fighting over holding Vasuki, they see that, okay, the demigods are holding the head of Vasuki, so that must be the good part. Why are they giving us this degraded part, holding the backside of Vasuki? So in this competitive spirit, they go and grab the head of Vasuki, and then they're burnt by his flaming mouths. And then now we're hearing once they are getting the nectar, they'll be bewildered by Mohini Morti and lose again. So it doesn't work out for the demons. But Krishna, he's always protecting his devotees. So for them, there's always victory, opulence, everything is in their favor. So a little more on the demoniac mentality from Bhagavad Gita. This is the next text, 13 through 15. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. You can see it's not a very intelligent way of living to think, I am actually incredibly happy, I'm satisfied, I'm all good. It doesn't make much sense, actually, because in the material world, everyone's not all good. The body has to get old. At some point, everyone has to die. No one can stop diseases. Who doesn't have some disease? Whose mind is always peaceful? So to think that I'm all good is a sign of less intelligence. So as Krishna explains, the demoniac people, they're deluded by ignorance. To think I'm perfect, I'm powerful, I'm happy, I'm the richest person surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There's none more powerful and happy than me. One would have to be very puffed up. When we hear Krishna say different things like, everything is emanating from me, just surrender unto me, give up all other duties, I'll protect you, do not fear. For him, when he says any of these things, it makes perfect sense because everything does come from him. He's the owner, he's the proprietor, the supreme friend, the well-wisher of all living entities. What is it? The peace formula. He's the supreme proprietor, the supreme enjoyer, and the supreme well-wisher. So he can actually enjoy, but if somebody is thinking that I'm the enjoyer, everything in this world can be used for my sense gratification, it's a big delusion. At the end of the day, if someone has $1 million, they can eat 5 chapatis, maybe at the most. And if they have no money, they can also eat the same amount of chapatis. So there's not any use to having this conception of life. And then continuing in the Bhagavad Gita, thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down into hell. Self-complacent and always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifices in name only, without following any rules or regulations. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion. So we see this demoniac mentality, it's troublesome from beginning to end. And throughout the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that this is the difference between the devotees and the demons. The demons want sense gratification, but the devotee wants to satisfy the senses of Krishna. Krishna, he's the seer, and the devotee is the seen. He wants to be seen by Krishna. He wants to serve Krishna in such a way that Krishna sees, oh, wow, this devotee, he's doing something nice for me. So Krishna is the enjoyer, and the devotee is the enjoyed. He wants to provide for Krishna's sense gratification. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain that there can be no question of peace in human society or any society, even that of the demigods, as long as one has this mentality of sense gratification. How can I get something for myself? So we can see anywhere in this material world, it's a place of anxiety because that mentality is always there. Even the demigods, they are performing some worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but then they also have some desire to satisfy their own senses. So we can see with Indra, he also gets into so much trouble because of this desire for personal sense gratification. There's so many times where he'll have to protect his kingdom from different demons, or he'll become attracted to somebody else's wife and then get cursed and get into so many different difficulties. So even if one's living a pious life or the life of a demigod, as long as this material desire is there, that let me get something for myself, then there's always some amount of problems or a huge amount of problems. So the devotee, they give up this desire for personal sense gratification. They don't give up all desires. Like, we were distributing books yesterday, and there's somebody handing out flyers again to this like a nonsense spiritual group where they like to talk a little bit about Krishna and his pastimes, and even a little bit of devotional service. But they say devotional service or service to Krishna is just a tool that you can use to get closer to him. And then when you're close to him, you can just become one with him, and you don't need to serve him anymore. And for somehow or other, that's supposed to be a symptom of their love. But we can see, where's the question of love if they're thinking, this person is just another object for me to exploit. I can trick them a little bit by my service, get close to them, and then I can become that person. It's just another form of sense gratification. They're thinking, how can I, just like if somebody wants to come up in a position in a job, there's a boss in the job, so I can serve him nicely, and then right when there's the opportune moment, I can make sure he gets kicked out of the position, and I can take his position. So what question of love is there in that equation? There's no love, but there is this demoniac mentality of sense gratification. So to make a whole sort of spiritual process, but in the guise of how can I enjoy more? How can I be liberated from my suffering? Or how can I become God? Then it's just another form of sense gratification. It's demoniac. It's not devotional or full of love, like they say. It's actually very disturbing. And because there's no love or devotion, it can actually be very obvious that what someone's doing in the name of spirituality is a complete facade. If you look at, because it's a temple that I'm talking about, that these people were advertising. And if you look at the reviews for the temple, if you look at the low ones, they all say, they have their different complaints, but there's one complaint that you'll see throughout many of them, and they say, the food is horrible. So there's something to be noted there, is that whatever they're doing, if it's not made with love and devotion, then of course the food's going to be horrible. It's made with lust and commotion. There's nothing nice about it. It's gonna, you can read, there's different modes of material nature in the Bhagavad Gita, and they have their symptoms, which includes the symptoms for food. So if it's made in the mode of ignorance, it's stale, putrid, nasty. If it's in the mode of passion, too pungent, too salty, and all of these things. So people go to that place expecting some spiritual experience, but what do they get? There's no love. So then what do they get? The food is terrible, they say. But if they come to somewhere which is full of love and devotion, then we see they can't stop eating. And it's really nice when we walk by
Radha Kalachandjis on the restaurant side, you can look in and see many people who it might be their first time ever coming in any contact with Krishna consciousness, and they're taking it down. They got a full plate of prasadam, and they're speaking with their friends, and they're just going for it. Because they can tell, wow, this is made with love and devotion. And not only that, but there's a secret ingredient they can't get anywhere else, and that is Krishna's mercy. It's offered to Krishna, and so then when the devotees take it, or when anyone takes it, they become purified. But we see when people go somewhere where there's no love and devotion, they're not getting purified by eating there or associating with people there, but they're getting putrefied. So even if they speak about Radha, Krishna, Leela, and all of these things, they turn it into some dubious thing. When one devotee was asking that to Srila Prabhupada, he was saying, well, if the pastimes of Krishna and the gopis and Srimati Radharani are, the supreme most activity in all of creation, and they're the most purifying thing to hear about, then shouldn't I always speak about this and always read about this, Krishna's Rasa Leela and these things? Won't I get purified? And Srila Prabhupada, he tells him that. He tells him, no, you won't get purified, you'll be putrefied. Not just if you ever speak about it, but he's saying that the qualification has to be there. So, of course, these are the topmost topics in all of existence, is Krishna's intimate dealings with his very close associates, the gopis and Srimati Radharani. But if one is not qualified, if they're still tinged with this demoniac mentality, and what is that? Again, the same word, sense gratification. Aham purvam, me first. How can I get my enjoyment? If they're still tinged with that, then there's no question of delving into these topics or indulging in these intimate pastimes of Krishna, because they'll bring along this demoniac mentality with them. They'll hear about Krishna dancing with the gopis and hearing his different dance moves and whatnot, and then think, me first, I should be the one to dance with the gopis. Like Shankachuda. Shankachuda, he heard about Krishna and Srimati Radharani and the gopis and how beautiful they all are, and he spoke about this to Kamsa. This is in several different texts. One place where it's mentioned is in the Garga Samhita. And Shankachuda, speaking about this to Kamsa, they get fired up and think, aham purvam, natvam iti prabho. I should enjoy the gopis first, not you or anyone else. And so they go and try to steal away, or Kamsa deputes Shankachuda to go and try to steal away some of the gopis. And what happens? He gets smashed like anything. There's a nice picture, or there's a nice painting, I think, of Krishna killing Shankachuda. I'm not sure what devotee made it, but Krishna's doing kind of a jump punch. He runs, catches up to him, and like a Superman punch. Krishna's the original Superman, and destroys him. So if one has this tinge of sense gratification, material desire, then hearing about these pastimes of Krishna and indulging in them is not helpful, because they'll bring their mundane conception into that. There's an example that one sannyasi of some esoteric thing, he's giving a class to just, the public, and he's got a nice beard, and he's speaking on this very intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and them playing chess and something like this, and they get into some quarrel. And he sees that this lady in the audience is crying, and he's very pleased by this. Oh. He tells her that, yes, you have attained bhava, or some high stage of Krishna consciousness. Please explain to us all why, and this is a real example, please explain to us all why you were crying while hearing about these pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And she explained that she had one goat named Radha, and just recently Radha the goat died. And whenever she's looking at him speaking with his beard, it's reminding her of the goat, and he's saying Radha, and spontaneous tears are coming to her eyes. So if one is not purified, if one's not Krishna conscious, Then when they're hearing these things, they might think of their goat Radha, or Srila Prabhupada also writes in one purport, they might think of some mundane woman, some girlfriend Radha, the barber's daughter Radha. So when he explains that one should become, first deserve, then desire, not to try to jump ahead and get more for oneself, more than they're ready for, just like the demons are trying to do here. They don't deserve the nectar. If the demons get the nectar, which makes one almost immortal, then there's just endless chaos. They become even more strong, even more puffed up. They make even more disturbances for others. And like this, if the demons become more powerful, then there's just more problems. So they're not deserving of this nectar. They're not qualified. And in this way, they shouldn't even desire it, but they're saying I should get it first, not anybody else. So, in the same way, when hearing the intimate pastimes of the Lord, if one becomes qualified, they become free from material desires, then these things become very nectarian to the devotee and also purifying. But as long as one's in a material conception of life, then these things they can be putrefying. And Srila Prabhupada explains that very heavily in these conversations. And there's one specific recording I'm thinking of where the devotees ask him many questions about this, because they explain that there's a Gopi Bhava club. Some devotees want to get together and only read the pastimes of the gopis. And they present many different arguments to Srila Prabhupada on why should we not just, hear more and more about the pastimes of the gopis, and then we'll be purified from material desires. But at one point, Srila Prabhupada, he just makes it very clear, and he says, your interest for hearing about the Rasa Leela is because, and he slows down his words a lot, he says, is because you have sex desire. He just makes it very clear. So we should see what is am I really spontaneously interested in hearing about Krishna purely? Or why do I have some attraction to hear about, these, the dancing of the gopis and the different descriptions of how they're looking and all of these things? Is there some tinge of some material desire there? We should see that. And then here, in a systematic way, we should see what am I actually qualified to be hearing. So Srila Prabhupada explains that we should hear the Srimad Bhagavatam from beginning to the end. It's systematic. That's why there's a whole 9 cantos to explain who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, how is everything functioning under his control, and who are we as his eternal servants, and what is our duty? How can we be reconnected with him by engaging in his service, and how is that service to be performed? How does he like it to be performed? That's also given in Scripture. So there's a whole 9 cantos to explain our position and Krishna's position and how he's the supreme controller. And then there's the 10th canto. Once one can have some idea of who is this supreme personality of Godhead, then they can hear about his sweet pastimes. But just jumping into it haphazardly won't be very helpful. Let me just see if there's anything else in the purport to touch on. So Srila Prabhupada explains that since the devotees are always surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord himself is actually anxious to satisfy their ambitions. So Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala. The devotee, he wants to satisfy Krishna, and Krishna, he wants to satisfy his pure devotee. So, and it's inconceivable actually, because Krishna, he's in control of everything. Everything belongs to him. He doesn't need to go out of his way to serve anyone else or do anything except just enjoy. But that is actually his topmost enjoyment, is to try to serve his pure devotees. So we see it's like a competition. The devotee is trying to serve Krishna more and more, and Krishna is trying to serve his pure devotee more and more. And this is described often in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we can see what is actually the level of devotional service, or what is its value, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself comes in the form of his pure devotee for the sake of engaging in the Sankirtan movement as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's obvious that there's nothing better to do. Krishna knows how to enjoy. He knows what is the best use of time. And his supreme enjoyment is engaging, of course, in his eternal dance party in the spiritual world, but also in the Sankirtan movement as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is non-different. So we should see that actually there's no better use of time than to follow in the footsteps of the great personalities and the greatest personality wherever we are qualified to do that. So some activities, of course, we're not qualified to follow Krishna's example, such as his Rasalila, or even his, when he's Giridhari, he's lifting Govardhan Hill. I definitely can't lift a hill, or I can't even lift a Srimad Bhagavatam with one pinky. But if we follow the examples that are set out for us, like as Lord Chaitanya, he's giving this Shikshashtakam, explaining that he doesn't want anything else. He just wants to be engaged in Krishna's service. Whatever happens, if there's happiness or distress, he just wants to be engaged in the service of the Lord. So we can follow in his example in that way and try to always be engaged in his service and in preaching this message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's Sankirtan with the small mridanga, which is heard for some blocks. And then there's the Brihad Mridanga, which is the book distribution, which is heard all over the world. And there's many ecstatic books we can read from devotees that explain just how miraculous this Brihad Mridanga is. Like one book by Tranakarta Prabhu, O Hare Krishna Airport. We can hear how devotees were slogging it out day after day to give these books to everyone that they met throughout the O Hare Krishna Airport in Chicago, and the incredible arrangements that Krishna makes for so many people to get the mercy just from those devotees distributing the books in one place and then those books going all over. So then in the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, while the demons fight to satisfy their own senses, devotees engage in devotional service to satisfy the senses of Krishna. So Krishna's senses can be satisfied by us engaging in Sankirtan and bringing more fallen conditioned souls back to their natural habitat in the spiritual world. Just like when a son goes away from the father, he might be a very rich man, but he'll be in so much anxiety knowing that his son is suffering on his own, trying to enjoy in some strange way, like if he becomes a hippie or something like that. But if a nice person sees that son suffering on the street and brings him back to the father becomes so endeared to him that, wow, you have saved my boy. So like that, Krishna becomes satisfied by the devotees engaging to bring all living entities back to Krishna, back into his service, where they will actually be happy and free from anxieties. And then in the end, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the members of the Krishna consciousness movement must be alert in regard to this point of the demons always desiring sense gratification. Then their preaching of the Krishna consciousness movement will be successful. So if we understand that, okay, this desire for sense gratification, this material desire, wanting something selfish for myself, having some separatist mentality or some ulterior motive, that's the demoniac mentality. That's what's going to curtail the Krishna consciousness movement. If we have some conception of that, then our preaching of the Krishna consciousness movement can be successful, because we can see it's not a movement for satisfying my senses. Devotional service isn't meant just to satisfy me. The world isn't meant for my enjoyment. But actually, I have to give myself somehow or other selflessly to Srila Prabhupada's movement. And we see there's so many forms of doing that which are going on nicely here. Devotees are cooking so nicely for the Lord. They're dressing the Lord so nicely. Devotees are distributing books. There's so many ways that devotees can set aside all other motives and be engaged purely in Krishna's service. That was the instruction given to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was to keep aside, was to preach the absolute truth keeping aside all other things. So, are there any questions, comments, chastisements? Right, I didn't. Sometimes when I give a class, I have some notes, and I like to read a lot of quotes from Srila Prabhupada, but if I give it on the spot, I kind of ramble, so please forgive me if anything was a little spaced out.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for a nice class. And you asked in the morning, can I give class? And I was like,
I think
no,
Prabhu asked if I could give class.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And I said, no, there's a speaker scheduled. So you're more in touch with Krishna and his desire. So I mean,
I don't think I'm in touch with Krishna because I didn't know about
rambling.
it.
So thank you for giving class. Question is, we're reading about this nectar for which everybody was starting to cooperate. Even the demons are cooperating with the demigods, Vasuki and Garuda. Everybody is like cooperating. And then, of course, as you read today, we see that they start fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But we understand that nobody is immortal here. So what is the, you said almost
What's the nectar
immortal.
do?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
why is it special? And if we understand that you can't be immortal.
Yeah, anyone can cooperate as to get the job done. If you know, like the demons, they're thinking, I'm going to get some sense gratification. So I can do anything and everything. I can cooperate with the demigods. We see even Kamsa, this is explained in the Sri Garga Samhita, which there's now a full 30-volume set of by His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami, and it's very ecstatic. But we see in the Garga Samhita in the beginning, Kamsa, he comes in contact with Parshuram, the most fearsome form, one of the most fearsome forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his Shaktivesh avatar. And Kamsa, he starts, this is the mindset of the demons. They think they can be just like Krishna. So he starts lifting the hill. He's also a lifter of a hill. But he starts lifting this hill that Parshuram is on, doing austerities, and dropping it over and over again. And Parshuram becomes furious. And he goes and he sees Kamsa, and he's ready to kill him. And he says, "You baby crab, you're just another Kshatriya for me to kill." And Kamsa, he's smart. And he wants sense gratification. And for sense gratification, you need a material body. So immediately, to preserve his material body, he does full dandavats. And he's very smart. He tells him, "I'm das anudas anudas. I'm the servant of your servants. Please protect me." He knows the whole philosophy. He can also say, "Yes, Prabhuji." Yeah, I'm the servant of your servant Narada Muni. So he can do the whole thing too. He can say, "Yes, Prabhuji. Very nice, Prabhuji. Very good class. All these nice things. I'm okay. You're okay." But he can use it to get his own selfish end. So anybody can do that, and we see the demons, they're doing that to get their sense gratification. But on the other hand, the devotee, he can tolerate anything in order to see that Krishna is satisfied. He can be kicked around. I remember Mukunda Datta Prabhu was here recently, and he gave these really ecstatic classes. I was listening to a few of them. And one time, a devotee had asked him, this was at Sadhu Sangha 2 years ago, that if you were the lowest of, if seeing yourself as the lowest of the low and very humble like this, then how can you not be, stepped on by others and, bothered by others and kind of taken advantage of? And he said, you will be. But that's the point, is that you have to tolerate that. So the devotee, they're not looking to get anything from this material world or get any validation from anybody. And sorry, this is just one tangent class, so I'm giving it as kind of just rambling. But Navina Nirada Prabhu, he explained something on this point. He's a great book distributor. I think he distributed books to everyone is it Sweden or Switzerland? I get them in Switzerland. Yeah, everybody in Switzerland. So he was explaining that as long as one is looking for some validation from the material world, then they're always going to be disturbed, because that's the nature of the material world. There's ups and downs. But if they get everything they need just in their japa, from their chanting, their connection with Krishna, then when they go out for book distribution, they can just freely give Krishna's mercy, just like he said, a Persian prince who goes out and just freely distributes some of the money from the treasury to anybody and everyone, and that person's not disturbed because they're actually there to help others, not to get something from others. So if someone's trying to get their validation from the material world or their enjoyment from the material world, they'll always be disturbed. So a devotee sets that aside, and tolerating everything, trying to be more humble than the blade of grass, they can take on all difficulties for serving Krishna, as we see in so many examples of Srila Prabhupada and his sincere followers. And then on the why they're working together to get this nectar is because it's good for sense gratification. If you drink this nectar, you live for a very long time. So to a human being, it seems like immortal because it's millions of years. Just like to an ant, my lifetime might seem like immortal. So different degrees of living entities in the material world, and they each have their own setup going on. But yeah, for one who wants to try to enjoy this body, if your body is very strong, has no diseases, can live millions of years, then that's a better situation. Any other comments or corrections, questions?
We've been reading a lot about the demons and the devotees fighting with each other. I wanted to ask a little bit about devotees fighting with each other. In 1976, with Prabhupada in the building in the New York Temple, it was a big temple that had elevators. So I was standing waiting for one of the elevators, and when the door opened, Vishvareda and Subhuti Roy were having just a total knockdown threat with Prabhupada in the building. And they were wham, wham, punching it out, slamming against each other. It was just like a boxing ring. And then I just stood there, and the door closed. So I took the other elevator. There's two. And one time I was in Mayapur with Prabhupada 20 feet away. I was walking up the stairs, and Chiru, Salt Lake City Chiru, was coming up the stairs, and this big sannyasi, it looked like he had a background of being in prison a little bit. He had tattoos, and he was kind of a rough guy, Sudama Vipra. And he punched Chiru in the stomach, and then Chiru just folded up and rolled down the stairs. So they went to Prabhupada with it, because this just happened like right down the... If you've ever been in the Lotus building, you know that the stairs end, and then there's Prabhupada's room. You know how close that is. It's like from me to you, So they go in. Prabhupada, Sudama Vipra just hit Chiru, and Prabhupada said, "Oh, that's Sudama Vipra, he's a gunda." And then Prabhupada didn't say another word about it. He didn't have any interest in what the issue was, or what, from Prabhupada, when devotees fight, he didn't really seem to care what they were fighting about. He thought the problem was that they were fighting. And we've seen that devotees fight over like big international issues, local temple issues, like how much prasadam to cook. One Sankirtan devotee told me that there was somebody that was trying to stop him from doing book distribution, and even called the BBT to see if they could stop selling him books. And devotees have interpersonal fights sometimes also, So Prabhupada, his attitude's kind of summed up in this, if I can see this without my glasses. This is from a letter from 1974. And Prabhupada says, "Stop this fighting, tolerate, chant, and read our books. Use the intelligence and do some service to Krishna. My request to you is to not fight anymore. So Prabhupada makes it sound so simple. My request to you is to not fight anymore. It sounds so easy. You know, you're, instead of fighting, just not fight. So why is it, you know, because we're all devotees, we all Vaishnavas on one level or another. So why can't we follow that, what seems to be like a simple instruction from Srila Prabhupada, just not to fight?
In one spot, Srila Prabhupada explains that between brothers, there's always some enviousness between brothers. So we could see it's likely to happen with God brothers. And also one person asked Srila Prabhupada, this was when they were building the project in Bombay, the Juhu temple. They were saying they were flabbergasted that one devotee had punched another one, and they were fighting. He was telling Srila Prabhupada that your disciples are actually physically fighting each other. And Srila Prabhupada's reply, I think a lot of devotees know this, when he's saying, you're surprised that they're fighting? I'm surprised they're chanting Hare Krishna. So that is there. We see what kind of background are so many devotees coming from, especially when so many people, the hippie movement was so big. So many people are joining from hippie backgrounds and other crazy groups at that time. So some of that can be brought into devotional service or into the society of devotees. We see now also people still join from many crazy places. I was in Kansas City for 5 years, and like maybe 75% of the people who come to the temple to stay for some time are decently crazy. So people might bring in whatever their conditioning, but the amazing thing is, like Srila Prabhupada said, don't be surprised who goes, but be surprised who stays. So the amazing thing is that somehow or other, by the mercy of a devotee, they can be engaged in Krishna's service and start getting purified and get rid of this mentality, or at least corrected. Instead of fighting those who are their well-wishers, like the devotees, they can fight the demoniac civilization in so many different ways, like distributing thousands of books, dropping thousands of bombs. Srila Prabhupada termed it as dropping thousands of bombs into the laps of the conditioned souls, just like during wartime. So they can be a fighter for Srila Prabhupada. They can join Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan army like this, just by getting the mercy of a devotee. You had a comment on it?
Very nice. Thank you so much. I was, we were in Alachua after Sadhu Sangha this year, and Radhanath Maharaj gave a nice class. And he was making the point that that we shouldn't be surprised that there's going to be conflicts and disagreements and difficulties. We're in Kali Yuga, in the material world. And he was making the point that to the degree that we can find harmony amongst each other despite our differences and the challenges that come up being in the material world, in material bodies, conditioned and trying to practice Krishna consciousness, to the degree that we can find harmony despite those differences, that will be pleasing to Krishna. And that by doing that, by pleasing Krishna, we can get Krishna's mercy. And so he was just making the point that there's going to be problems, there's going to be difficulties, there's going to be disagreements and arguments. We're in the material world, we should expect it. But how do we find harmony despite those differences and cooperate together like that? And by doing that, we can please Krishna.
We read that also in the section with the prachetas, that Vishnu is pleased with the prachetas because of their cooperation as brothers. Is there any other comment, question, correction?
Thank you. I just Mr. Bhagwan Prabhu. I had one story in Mumbai. The Srila Prabhupada, one disciple, was shouted with His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj. So Bhakti Swami Maharaj was very soft. So he did not respond to him with anything. Yes, some means, he said, the culture kind of like that. So then Srila Prabhupada was Prabhupada, Bhakti was Prabhupada's secretary that time. So he went to the Srila Prabhupada room, but he did not say anything about what happened or the devotee. But Srila Prabhupada heard the boys. So then Srila Prabhupada said to Bhakti Maharaj, the best devotee who tolerate. This is not best devotee whose position in the movement. They carry the position, best devotee who's tolerant. So that Srila Prabhupada gives statement that there will be conflict and everything, but who tolerate.
You had a comment, Prabhu?
This is Jumna Prabhu. Do you think you can pull up this verse 5:18, 5:18:9? And this is a prayer offered by the king of demons. Who's that? Prahlad Maharaj. He said, Swajati Vishwasya Kalaf Prasidatam Dhyayantu Bhuta Nimitto Shivadya Manasya Badram Bhajatam Adokshya Aveshatam No Matarapya Haitake. So this is a prayer that Prahlad Maharaj makes on Hari Vamsha. He says, may there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be satisfied. Like we can see, these demons we're reading about, Prabhupada says, they're all envious of each other. May they all be satisfied. May all living entities become calm by practicing Bhakti Yoga, for by accepting devotional service. They will think of each other. That this is just a natural byproduct. We don't have to do anything else. You have to practice devotional service. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of Supreme Transcendence, Lord Sri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. So bottom line, even with the demons, we're seeing that they're fighting with each other. But we can hypothetically understand if the demigods were to get it, even the devotees, even if they be mixed devotees, still they would listen to the order of the spiritual of Krishna, and they would cooperate. They would be very in perfect harmony with each other. We can see this over here. Even Prahlad Maharaj, he's praying that the demons who are envious, they be pacified by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, by the practice of Krishna consciousness. So when especially if there's practice, and we say that when someone is they're practicing Krishna consciousness purely, even the rogues and the ruffians, Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tanaparo, Krishna, we see that even the rogues and the ruffians, they're all satisfied with the Goswamis. Dhira dhira jana priyo priyo karo nirmat saro pujito. So we can see that even they're pacified when there's a practice of Krishna, pure Krishna consciousness. But we can see that even for someone like Srila Prabhupada, someone like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there were people who bribed the cops in Bengal back in 1930, 25,000 rupees to murder Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But anyway, he was saved. So we can see that even the greatest well-wishers, they pray like this. They pray like this. Even though there's so many envious people, they're always praying like this. He even Prahlad Maharaj prayed like this for Hiranyakashipu also. Who could have tortured him more? And we can see in this purport, Prabhupada is making a reference to the essence. This verse, not this one, but the verse I'll quote after this, is the essence of the entire Krishna consciousness. Atmendriya priti vancha tare balikam, Krishnendriya priti ishadhare premanam. The desire to satisfy one's own senses is known as lust, whereas the desire to satisfy the senses of Krishna is known as love. So if our desire is to satisfy the senses of Krishna naturally, then of course there'll be differences, and we see in the spiritual world also there's differences and all this, but those differences are pleasing to Krishna. We cannot wipe out differences. We cannot wipe out different opinions. That's Mayavad. But those differences amongst how Krishna should be served is pleasing to Krishna. Whereas the differences about how to gratify the senses is not pleasing to Krishna.
Anything else? Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.